In 1989, Buffett named the force that quietly destroys fortunes. He called it the institutional imperative, and it has ruined giants. It is why brilliant managers copy their dumbest rivals. The copy that looks like strategy is really pure fear. That fear vaporized more wealth than the 2008 crash. Today you learn to spot it before it costs you money. You leave with 4 signs of a manager immune to it. First, see why the smartest people in the room obey. A chief executive is paid to grow the empire, not shrink it. His board ranks him against Wall Street rivals every quarter, so when a rival buys a company, standing still feels like death. The instinct that quietly ruined great companies is wired into us. Keynes saw it decades before Buffett ever wrote it down. He said, failing conventionally protects a career better than winning alone. Fail with the herd and you keep the corner office. Succeed alone and one bad quarter ends you. The math is brutal and it rewards the coward every time. Buffett watched bankers lend like lemmings into every doomed boom. None wanted to be the one bank that missed the party. Then the loans went bad and the banks went broke together. Being wrong in a crowd feels survivable. Being wrong alone leaves you broke. This imperative hides inside every glossy annual report. Buffett listed 4 ways it warps a decent, intelligent manager. 1, the organization resists any change to its current direction. 2, projects and deals appear just to soak up idle cash. 3, any craving of the leader gets dressed up as a study. 4, the moves of peers are copied without a second thought. Not one of these has anything to do with intrinsic value. Everyone is about ego, comfort, and never getting fired. Directors rarely fire a manager for merely following the crowd. They fire the one who stood apart and stumbled once. So the safest career move is to never stand apart. Munger calls the fix a simple checklist against your own ego. The shareholder is the only party with no seat in that room. Now watch the imperative when it finally meets real money. The favorite weapon is the empire-building deal at the top. A boss wants to feel bigger, so he overpays until profits crash. The deal that erased a decade of profit always looked visionary. In 2001, AOL and Time Warner merged into a legend of ruin. The merger that vaporized $200 billion was sold as Synergy. Quaker Oats bought Snapple near $2 billion at the peak. 3 years later, they dumped it for pennies. Humiliated. Hewlett-Packard paid $11 billion for autonomy, then wrote it off. In 1998, Daimler paid $36 billion to swallow Chrysler. 9 years later, it paid a buyer just to take Chrysler away. Royal Bank of Scotland bought ABN AMRO at the 2007 top. The deal broke the bank and taxpayers were left to rescue it. General Electric bought its way into finance and nearly went bankrupt. The empire that looked unstoppable had to be bailed out. Each buyer swore to Wall Street the merger was essential. Each was really a manager who refused to sit still. The 1960s conglomerate era ran this script on an enormous scale. Managers bought unrelated firms until the debt left them bankrupt. Then the structure collapsed under debt no one could service. Investors who trusted the growth story went broke. Buffett warns this pattern has left investors broke again and again. A manager is paid for the deal, never for the outcome. He signs, he collects, and the loss lands squarely on you. The second weapon is the buyback fired at the worst moment. A buyback should return cash only when shares trade below book value. Instead, most firms buy heaviest when their shares are dearest. They buy at the top because rivals are buying at the top. Then the price crashed and the buyback halts at the bottom. Cash was destroyed to prop one number for a single quarter. The buyback that torched billions was announced as returning value. Banks did this before 2008, retiring stock at record highs. Months later, those same shares were worthless in the panic. The cash that could have shielded them was already gone. Companies spent trillions on buybacks near the giddy 2019 highs. When the 2020 crash struck, the buying stopped cold. Discipline means buying your own stock only below its worth. The market punishes the buyer who chases his price into a crash. Almost no manager resists buying high when everyone else does. The third weapon is Me Too expansion into a crowded boom. When one firm chases a hot market, the rest stampede in. Oil firms drilled hardest in 2014 with crude near record highs. Then supply floods, the price collapses, and the wells bleed cash. airlines add routes at the top and watch profits crash. The expansion that drowned the herd began as a bold move. The herd moved as one, and the herd went broke as one. Telecom firms overpaid for spectrum in the 2000 auction frenzy. The auction that crowned a winner often bankrupted him. Every board approved it because every rival had approved it. Once you learn the shape, you cannot unsee it. Everything in this video comes from the books linked below. You can also hear them free with the Audible trial. So how do you find a manager immune to all this? The first sign is a buyback made only when shares are cheap. Immune managers hoard cash as everyone else overpays for stock. Then they strike hard the moment the market crashes and marks down. Buffett and Teledyne's Henry Singleton bought only in the wreckage. Check the annual report page for when the buybacks happened. If they bought high with the crowd, they wiped out your money. Great allocators treat their own stock like any other bargain. They buy greedily when Wall Street fear has crushed the price, and they will not touch it when the crowd is euphoric. The second sign is a manager willing to simply do nothing. Idle cash feels like failure, so weak managers go broke fast. The pitch that a patient manager waits for comes rarely. A restless manager who must always deploy capital gets wiped out. Read Buffett's letter and you will find patience praised as power. Cash on the balance sheet is dry powder, not laziness. The patient manager guards that powder for the coming storm. He would rather miss a deal than make a ruinous one. Graham taught that inactivity is often the wisest position. A leader proud of sitting still is a leader worth trusting. The third sign lives in the pay, where the truth hides. Most bosses are paid for size, growth, and total revenue. The bonus that pays for size will cost you your capital. An immune manager is paid for return on capital per share. Tie his reward to your share and his interest becomes yours. Read the proxy page and find what the bonus truly measures. Ask whether growth in earnings per share drives the payout. Empire size should never be the number that pays the boss. Munger warns that bad incentives quietly bankrupt good firms. Aligned pay quietly turns a hired hand into a real partner. The fourth sign is the rarest and the most revealing. The sign that reveals an honest manager hides in one paragraph. Most reports bury errors in fog and blame the wider economy. Buffett opens his letters by listing what he got wrong. A leader who admits a dumb deal thinks like an owner. The manager that spins every failure is protecting his career. Spin is expensive and it can cost you everything. One honest paragraph tells you more than a glossy report. A manager who owns his errors will guard your money. Candor on the page is candor with your capital. The rule that separates discipline from ego is brutally simple. Cheap-only buybacks, patient cash, per-share pay, and honest words. Score a management team against these four before you buy. Wall Street ignores good management until the reckless are wiped out. So the disciplined manager often hides in plain, boring sight. Find him early, and the imperative that ruined others protects you. None of these four signs needs a finance degree to check. They sit in the letter, the proxy, and the annual report page. An afternoon of honest reading can save you years of loss. Your edge is refusing to reward the imperative with your capital. Subscribe, because a new method like this drops here every day. Next, 3 balance sheet lines that reveal a moat before the market prices it.